Now, we will also quickly take, I will also show you an ROI calculator. So it's a calculator. It's a calculator that that will allow you to be able to estimate the non-functional requirements, which will help you to size the kind of effort that is required when you are considering for a fixed bid, right? So just give me a second here. I'm going to open the Excel template. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to keep posting the questions. We should be able to answer as much as we can given time. So we have some questions already lined up. So we'll take a couple of questions while we are in the process of opening up the template. So there's one question from Vishal Verma. Usually the effort estimation is quite yearly in the project and specifically for fixed bid. You have a competitor as well. The level of details like architecture and framework is not decided by them. So you have to normally make many assumptions on how this should be handled. That's a very very valid question, and pretty much the scenario across everywhere. Now, the best approach you can take is there is always going to be an idea of the size of the project that you are dealing with, right, and the nature of the product you are dealing with. What happens is when you do the first cut of your estimation, many times people tend to miss out, or like we saw, underestimate the technical complexity because they don't have a checklist. They don't have an idea of what are all the various things that may impact the system. Now, the ideal approach in scenarios like this is to, if you have an NFR, what you should do is you, based on your level of understanding, you take the 5 or 6 non-functional requirements, do your own assumption. For example, when you take scalability, you can say, okay, based on understanding, I feel that this system should be scalable up to 3,000 concurrent users. Similarly, put for availability. I feel the availability should be okay if it is like 99.99%. So like this, if you list down for each of the non-functional requirements, and based on that assumption, you size up your estimate, and then go back to your customer and submit it. It does multiple things. One, it gives a proactive approach, right? So your customers will see it as a value add. They see that you are thought through on different angles, which they themselves might not have done in some places. And then, even though your numbers are going to be high, say for example, they understand that okay, it's because of these assumptions they are thinking you are come up with this number, and then they come back and say, okay, I don't think I need this level of scalability. You can cut it down. So they start giving their own recommendations on these things. So it's a nice guided approach to have your customers or pull the information from your customers, and then also safely keep revising your estimate. But if you go in the first place ignoring all these things, then you are already in a trap because you're given a less number, and then going and increasing the number is totally unrealistic. So customers are not going to accept it. So we have the ROI calculator up now. So this is a calculator. We'll also share the link for downloading this calculator so that you can try it yourself. We have put together this calculator to achieve 2 things. One, as project managers, as developers, you can use this calculator to find out what kind of an effort has to be put in order to be able to build some of the common non-functional requirements. So we saw a set of NFRs, right? So this tool provides you a number and a very tangible number to each of the NFR items, right? So that you know exactly what it takes, and then you can go ahead and consider it in your project estimation, right? That's one part of the thing. The other part of it is also a comparison or on the ROI that you may get by adopting a framework, in this case Cello framework. So you will also see a comparison chart and ROI chart of it. It has instructions you can also go through. So I'll just quickly run through some of the key usage of this particular ROI calculator. There is an assumption sheet which talks about a few things like how do you want the report to be seen. So if it's like any of the unit you can pick up, I'll leave it at person hours. And then what do you think is the average resource cost per month? Right, so let me probably put 1000 USD is the average resource cost I'm going to spend, right, per month. Now, how many developers are you going to use in building this application or project, and how many production servers do you foresee to use? The last two are more to calculate from an Cello perspective, right? What does it take? Now, this sheet is the key sheet which has the complete set of items that deal with the non-functional requirements. So there are close to almost, I guess, close to 300, almost 295 line items are there. It is a very exhaustive list, and what it does is we have organized it into several line items. For example, the first level is a stat level, right? So you have the non-functional requirements, and then you have components, operational related things, engineering related aspects. The second level talks about, expands further. Under NFR, what are we talking about? So we're talking about customization, security, integration, and at the component level we are talking about the business rules, workflow. These are all generic things. So you could use the business rule for any product, any application. Similarly, workflow can be used anywhere. This is an ad hoc query builder and report builder, right? So it gives a second level of module. And then a third level which goes at the feature level. So within customization, what kind of features are we talking about? So here it starts with a simple UI change like themes and logo change to even going to the extent and changing the fields of a particular entity. So you have an employee form in your application, and if a customer comes and says, I want to add, I should be able to have the ability to add 2 more fields to it, because when I go for implementation, my customers may ask for different information. So I should be able to quickly add these 2 fields without much of a data engineering work. And how do I do it? So extension fields will give you the capability. So on the fly, you can go add dynamic fields to your entities and bring them into the UI, right? So the data view extended fields gives you the capability to even bring that newly added fields into existing screens of your product. All this done through the UI itself, administration UI, done within minutes. Right? So it saves a lot of time when it comes to the implementation cycles. So this is an example of what customization can do. Similarly, user security management related aspects, dealing with the user role privilege management. And one thing that typically happens is people would like to have a granular level of control, which means they don't want to just stop at just a permission level, but then they want to be able to handle it at a role level, at a permission level, at a entity level, at a user level, right? So they want very granular level of dimension, security matrix dimension, so that they can exactly specify what a user can do and cannot do within the system. Notification, like we saw, ability to send out emails, shoot out emails, FTP kind of things. Right? On the components front, you have the business rules. One great advantage of business rules is in many cases, many products, particularly with the products where it changes from one customer to another customer, things change, right? So what we typically do is within the code, we tend to do a check. So developers tend to do a check, okay, if this is the customer type, then do this business logic, else you do this business logic. So that's a pretty easier way of handling, doing it faster, but then that's not a scalable one. And that's not going to give you a maintainable code at the end of the day. A business rules module will help you to address these kind of variations, business logic variations from customer to customer or scenario to scenario, right? Take it out independently and handle it at the business rules engine level, so that your product will still be a generic product. The product will simply consume a business rule and execute based on the result. So what you have done is you have eliminated the variations from the code to a framework level, and the code now becomes much simpler to read, maintain, operate, and develop as well. Similarly, workflow, you will be able to define multiple workflows. Say if it's a HR system and you want to define a leave management workflow. So leave management workflow can change from customer to customer, right? Or from scenario to scenario. Now, how do I define it dynamically? How do I make it operating dynamically? So again, a workflow designer comes to the picture. Similarly, the ad hoc query report builder, and operational related modules like tenant management, tenant hierarchy, right? So these are more specific to SaaS related projects or applications and products. And there are a good number of enterprise applications also today which almost need the same kind of tenant architecture, multi-tenancy architecture. Because what happens is multi-tenant in nature is not necessarily a SaaS, a particular one. It's a generic approach, a style of architecture which allows you to handle different group of users under different settings, but using the same code base. So it could be one large enterprise. You may develop a project for one large enterprise, and the enterprise may have a US division, a UK division, and they will say, okay, this particular functionality has to work in this way for US and should work for UK like this. The same leave management, if you take, the leave procedure may differ from US to UK. So you end up building a single system which is going to be used by a single customer, but then two geographies need two different styles of working. Now this can be achieved by using a multi-tenant approach. So multi-tenancy not necessarily is only for SaaS, it could be used for the enterprise solutions as well. And today more and more enterprises are taking up this approach because that gives a lot more control and security as well as a flexibility for them to operate upon. So this is a broad list. I mean, you can go through this, you can download this and go through in detail. I'll just tell you how to operate on this list and what does it encompass. The X marks that you see are the selections. So you are allowed to do selections at any level. For example, you can unselect a module and that particular module will be deselected, or you could also do unselection at a feature level. Right? For example, you can unselect at a feature level, and there is also a fourth line item which we didn't see, which is the capability level. So you could even go to capability level and mention that I don't want this particular capability. So it's a very granular level of control that you will have to determine what is available for you. So the idea is, based on this list, you have to determine what is required for your product and then do the selections accordingly. Right? You will also see a quick view of what does it take to build that particular line item or that group of line items. For example, here we are talking about customization. It's going to take, for example, 1763 unit, and the unit comes from here, which is person has. Right? You could also change it to person days and maybe look at the report as well. So it reflects in days now. So it's 220. Right? Now, so once you have done all the selection here, you could go to this sheet, ground up sheet, which throws you